the four basic elements of creation. So ether, right, which is basically the symbology of the color spectrum green, right? Because the Schumann resonance is also working in tandem with the heart chakra. There's a tether connection, right? Because I told you the heart chakra is green. The Schumann resonance is green. The Schumann resonance is the heartbeat of the planet Earth. The word heart is another is an anagram for the word Earth, right? So with that being said, the Schumann resonance spike, you having a amplified energy that's coming from the magnetosphere and activating the magnetic field of the planet, right? So what happens is when light breaks into a dimension, it reverses the polarity of time. So you broke out of that Kali Yuga cycle to where these new energies come in, these new fractions of light. That's what's taking place. Let me see. All right. All right, let me get back in here. I got a lot more crap. I had to get the super chat questions first. All right. Have you noticed the ocean on Google Maps spray paint? One thing that they hiding out there, they hiding the fact that, you know, the great majority of the oxygen on the planet is being amplified by the coral reef farms inside of the ocean, right? Because oxidation in itself, which comes from the coral reefs inside of the ocean, it breaks down the hemoglobin cellular structure to where it starts the aging process. But so now, when you're in the age of Aquarius by way of the sun cycle, what happens is it basically transmutes into an omicron-based atmosphere by going in the fourth octave ether. So what they hide in the fact is that, you know what I'm saying, the planet is going through a metamorphic shift. You know what I'm saying? So as above, so below. So if the atmosphere is changing, the water is changing as well. Lay down. Lay down till I get done, okay? I'm almost done. All right, let me see some more questions. The best way to plan is, you know, have a bag, you know what I'm saying, a get ready bag in your car. Have a, you know, tell your friends and your family, you know, get with like-minded people. Because like I said, you know, what makes you chosen is, you know, to not be tricked by the system, to not be tricked. That's what makes, you know, that's what spirituality is all about. It's not, you know, it's to not be tricked by the system. It's one of those things there where you got to galvanize your resources in order to combat the energies. Let me get some. I see some more super chats questions. Explain Project Bluebeam to people. I don't know. Project Bluebeam is basically a psychological operation that they're going to use. Is going to be amplified by NASA. So it's basically to deviate you from the fact that the planet is going through a metamorphic shift. It's going through a shifting process. So in order to stagnate the spiritual evolution, in order to stagnate the Great Awakening, they got to hit you with, you know, a psychological operation. That's the best way they do it. So Project Bluebeam is when you have a fake alien invasion, and they're going to use it with holographic and hologram technology. It's the same technology that they use, that the reptilians use to cloak themselves. It's called liquid crystal technology. And I'm going to be doing a video about that. That's my next video about. It's about how reptilians shapeshift. Because shapeshifting is not an ability, it's a technology. A lot of people need to understand that. Let me see. Shout out to everybody, man, that came into the live tonight. Because like I said, I'm going to start doing a lot more lives. All right, politics in Pluto and Aquarius. Pluto and Aquarius. Pluto represents the material plane. Aquarius represents the age of knowing. So a lot of things, as far as like your politicians, a lot of your celebrities, they're going to be exposed during this time period. A lot of them going to be exposed. So it's one of those things where you can't put your trust into people who have celebrity status or corporate status or whatever, because that's how you're going to get tricked. So the political system in itself, like I said, the Aquarian age is the foundation of the matriarch, right? Just like what's going on in Texas right now. Everything that's going on in Texas right now, the governor, he's a what? A Republican. He's going against who? Joe Biden, the deep state shadow government, democracy. Because I told you what the word democracy, where it comes from, right? It means demonic rulership. Because Krasi is equated to Kratos, and Kratos is Kronos, and Kronos is Father Time, which is the god of Saturn, the Saturn moon matrix system, right? Meaning that you are trapped by time. You live in a frequency entrapment planet, right? So that's what it's all about. It's all about demonic rulership. So the Republic is galvanized by the Aquarian age. So when you're talking about Democrats and Republicans, you're talking about the old system that was facilitated by the deep state, which is democracy, and then you got the old system that was once controlled by us under a matriarch, which is the Republic. So with that being said, that's why Donald Trump, he signed the declaration of the second Declaration of Independence on July the 4th of 2020. That was the restoration process of the Republic, right? So that's why it's imperative to know who you are. You know what I'm saying, on the genetical level and on the spiritual level and on a socio-political level. Let me see. Let me go in the super chat real quick, because we got some people in here. Now, there's a diametrical difference between the mythologies when you're talking about the Antichrist. To be an Antichrist means to be an anti-yourself. Because anti-yourself, meaning that you need external stimulation by way of the material plane, the physical world, that's connected to the Piscean age, right? But the personification of the Christ is the Christ consciousness that's connected to the Aquarian age, because the Aquarian age is all about knowing. Because when you know, you ain't got to believe a goddamn thing, because you know intuitively by way of the spiritual energy that's shifting the planet, right? So when these fractions of light hit the magnetites and the dendrites in the brain, which is the 144,000 crystals that ties the frequency of the soul and the mind together to where you become a whole brain thinker, right? That activates the hypothalamus gland, which is the master gland that activates the spiritual eye. That is the Christ consciousness. So anytime that you anti-yourself and you believe anything outside of yourself, you are the Antichrist. So you're going to have a lot of people believing in the government. You know what I'm saying? That's what's going to make them an Antichrist. A lot of people going to believe these celebrities. That's what's going to be their Antichrist. A lot of people believe in Jesus, believe in Allah, everything that's connected to the material plane. That's what makes you an Antichrist, because you anti yourself. You're here to save yourself. Ain't nobody gonna save your ass. That's what makes you an Antichrist. Now they will have, according to the mythology of all monotheistic teachings, they are going to have a false messianic figure that they're going to propagate through their system, right? But the real Christ consciousness, the real Christ, the returning to Christ, is you, right? By way of the harmonic convergence of the 144,000, right? Activated by the non-ether energy. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it's about. Now, let me see. We got 1,400 people in here. You know, hit that like button. hit that subscribe button. You know, let me see. But like I said, there's going to be a false messiah. There will be a false messiah that they're going to try to, because what the Bible is actually a Freemasonic playbook. It's a Freemasonic playbook that is basically a blueprint for the end of the system of and for the emergence of a so-called antichrist. All right, there's some more questions in here. Let me see this. Where recessive beings created by the blind opinion as a means of war against. Well, it's like I said, it's all connected to the mythology of Yakub. Now, one thing you got to understand is about, there is a misconception about the Great Awakening period. So when you understand the mythology of the so-called Bible, when you're talking about the book of Genesis, which means the genealogy of Isis, and when you break down the etymology of the word, it means the origins and production of something. Hold on, I froze up again. Hold on for a second. So, like I said, when you understand the mythology of the Bible, the book of Genesis talks about the origins and the production of something, which is equated to the genealogy of Isis, right? And the book of Genesis is talking about Yakub, right? Yakub or Jacob, which means subplanter. Jacob, Yakub means subplanter. So when you go to the Freemasonic principles, right? When you understand the genetical grafting of the recessive beings in 4086 BC on the island of Patmos, right? Jacob's ladder is a ritual that they do in Freemasonry because the Jacob's ladder is acclimated to the 33rd vertebrae. The 33rd vertebrae is synonymous to the fifth chakra. So the ascension process of Jacob's ladder is not acclimated to the recessive gene, those who have recessive genes, because that means they're not going to able to raise up their spiritual vibration because they're not going to be able to activate those 7 energy cortexes, the chakra system. So in order to, vibrate at a high frequency, when you have these recessive genetical traits, you got to show credence to the ones who created you. That's the only way you can survive the shift. But if you have this egotistical mindset that was connected to the old world, you know what I'm saying, you're going to fall when the system falls, right? So that's all connected to a form of racism. So like I said, there's many different mythologies, you know what I'm saying? You got many different, the cherubim or the 200 fallen angels, and they are the ones who so-called created, the Hamites and the Canaanites and things of that nature. It depends on what frequency you're on, because like I said, if you're a very emotional person, it can, you could be manipulated spiritually, because like I said, this system in itself, they supplicate your emotions and they transmute it into a weakness by way of emotionalism. So like I said, you got to be operating from a balancement standpoint, 0 point energy, not too happy, not too sad, because when you open yourself up with that frequency and that energy, that's when demons can attack themselves to your energetic morphic field. That's when the demons can attach to you. Yeah, I just got through eating, so like I said, I had to eat with my son because I got full custody of my son. So everything I do is really just based on his time. So a lot of times I gotta, when I do videos, I gotta hurry up and eat and do the video, watch him and all that. So I don't have as much free time as most people. Hit me up with some more questions. Because we live and a lot of people always say I don't answer their questions. So here we are. So I'm ready for the questions. Uh, Now, like I said, the mythology of the reptilians or whatever. Like here's one thing. You know, anytime anybody who has neuromelanin, you know what I'm saying, you do have the reptilian genetic as well, right? By way of the reptilian brain. So, like I said, the great majority of these Anunnaki beings, they have the ability, whether if it's the cherubim and the seraphim, you know what I'm saying, or it's the agreeable ones or the disagreeable ones, everybody has the reptilian genetic. Everybody has the ability to shapeshift. So, what I'm saying is when you're talking about, you know, a reptilian, when you go to Dr. York's publication of the Holy Tablets, it talks about how Enlil, he got manipulated by Tarnush, because Tarnush is the one. No, Enlil had the 7 tablets of destiny, right? And he had those 7 tablets of destiny, and that's why Zuen, who is Tarnush, who is the so-called personification of Shaitan, he befriended Enlil. So, with that being said, that means that Enlil, you know, this is just based on my independent research. Enlil and Yakub is basically the same person, according to what mythology that you follow. Because he also had a brother named Yushak. Yakub did, just like you have Enki, Enlil, Cain and Abel. It's the same mythology. It's the same thing when you follow the stories. Let me see. You should not leave America, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because when you go to um, what was it called? Yeah, you go to the 1848 Supreme Court decision on June 6th. It tells you that the geographical landmass of America is connected to the 5 civilized tribes: Choctaw, Wichita, Yamasee, you know, Seminole. Because when you break down the word Seminole, it means fugitive slave. So we was already here. So why would you leave from a place that you actually belong to? That don't make sense to you while you have the restoration of the republic in the sun cycle. So, like I said, everything that, you know, as far as, you know, the geographical landmass of America, we own it for 1,000,000 square miles. This landmass belongs to us, so why would you leave? Now, anytime, like now, for those who live in California and New York City, I would get out of those areas ASAP, because that's where the great majority of these psychological operations is going to take place. A lot of these so-called terrorist attacks. One thing I don't do, I don't follow religion because I know what religion is. All forms of religion is the veneration of the cube of Saturn. Let me see. What's Great Mother has been introduced with the Bible. Yeah, everything that's taking place right now is they're basically trying to bring the master teacher back. They trying to free up the master teacher because he should have been out of jail because he actually didn't do it. But that's a whole different video. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but when you're talking about a light shadow, one thing you got to understand is that a lot of these entities, when you study the 72 demons of Goetia, a lot of these demons, they don't take corporeal form. And a lot of them can attach themselves to your energetic morphic field and control you by way of your nervous system, kind of like a video game controller. You know what I'm saying? They have the ability by controlling your energetic frequency, by connecting themselves to your nervous system. That's why when you look at a lot of low vibrational people, their nervous system is compromised. Let's see what we got. I think we got some super chat questions. Let me see. Hold on first. Let's see what kind of questions we got. Let me see. We got how long will the Galactic Federation give us to renew our contract? Now, that's a great question. Now, you know, that's all speculation because I can't really say anything about that or whatever because I don't know because, you know, I can't really connect that that answer or that question to the time of that's acclimated to the time of mankind because like I said you operating on a man-made time clock and they're you know what I'm saying they're trying to match the frequency of the cosmic clock. So I don't know how long it will be, but like I said that's a good question. But I do but you can say you know their economical system is connected to the cosmic clock. So they know when the system's going to collapse by way of their by biblical context and stuff. What is the predicted global snaps? Like I said, I think the grid is going to go down when the sun reaches solar maximum because I told you around the time of the year 2025, that's when the sun, there's going to be it's going to be intrinsic solar radiation on the planet for like 3 days straight. I don't know why I keep lagging. It's going to be 3 days straight. It's going to be sunlight for 3 days straight around the year 2025. And that's when you go to Revelation chapter 8. It talks about 1/3 of the stars, 1/3 of the sun smitten. Where do now? This is a good question. Now when you go to the Bible, you know what I'm saying? There is a diametrical difference between uh, the Canaanites and the Hamites and the Semitic people. The Semitic people are the Bible are your so-called Negroes. Now the Hamites are the dark races. So there's a diametrical difference between the Semitic people and the Hamites, right? So because the Hamites are the progenitor of the dark races when you're talking about the East Indian, right? When you're talking about, you know, the Ethiopians and things of that nature, everybody from Africa, you know what I'm saying, just based upon the phenotype, those are two different types of people. Because like when you understand the story of Yaqub, what happened was Yaqub, he took the dark gene from the Semitic people and created uh, the other dark races that's connected to the seeds of Ham. So that's why when you understand the genetical structure of the hair follicle of certain people who come from, you know, Ethiopia and I forgot the other place, Etrian and stuff like that, you know, East Indians, they all have straight hair because they were genetically spliced. They are hybrid of something. That's when you have the dematerialization of the hair follicle by way of a grafting process, right? So, the Semitic people and the Hamites are not the same people. They're not the same people. The Semitic people of the Bible are the Negroes, the so-called Negroes, right? That's, your so-called chosen people. And the reason you know that is because where's your African Michael Jordan? Hold on, I just paused up for a second. I hate this fucking thing. All right, where's your African Michael Jordan? Where's your African Michael Jackson? Where's your African Jay-Z? Where's your African Beyonce? Where's your African Floyd Mayweather? Where's your African Prince? Right? Where's your African, anybody who's great came from this geographical landmass. Everybody who's great, are the progenitors of everything as far as like sports and music. Everybody wants to be like the people over in America. So that's how you know that the real chosen people are in this landmass, right? That's how you know. Because most Africans and most foreigners or whatever, they know all about, we don't know nothing about what's going on in a sports arena. We don't know about for some people who listen to different types of music, but the average American, you can ask them who's the best rapper in Africa. They ain't gonna know that shit. You know what I'm saying? So everybody, it don't matter where you from. Everybody knows about the greats that come from this landmass. So that's how you know. So like I said, it's one of those things where it's kind of like common sense. Let me see. I was going to ask about the original people. The Latin America scene, we were so tricked to believe. Yeah, because like I said, the tricknology in itself, the out of Africa theory was connected to, what I'm saying, the mythology of monotheistic belief systems. That's what it was all connected to. That's why they do that. Yeah, they're very athletic, but like what I'm saying, that's a no brainer. You know what I'm saying, because they have the carbonated genetic. But what I'm saying is, the great majority of your people who are very prominent as far as like sports, pop culture, singing R&B, the great majority of the greats come from this landmass. The only YouTube channel I really watch, I watch Dre OG, I watch Black Magic, and I watch the Young Elders channel. Those are the only channels I really watch because it's one of those things where, man, I don't really watch a lot of people's information because I don't want it to compromise my information. You know what I'm saying? I like to stay focused because as a content creator, you got to be very meticulous about what you're putting out because some people are, oh, he put out the same thing I put out. So I just kind of operate in my own frequency and get my own ideas and do my own research. Yeah, this stream yard, man, is real choppy. Also watch Truth Mafia, and I'm gonna be on Truth Mafia podcast tomorrow. If y'all want to tap in, I'm gonna be on there. So Truth Mafia podcast, we're gonna be doing an interview tomorrow. Oh yeah, I watch a seer, Sue Dirk Tears. He's a very good teacher. I've been watching him since I was like a freshman in high school, so I've been knowing about him for a long time. He's very good with the esoteric information about the Moors, the history of not the Moors, but the indigenous merge. Put it like that. I got some super chat questions. I'm gonna say I'm a gold blood with green eyes. No, because I'm gonna tell you why. Because anybody, you know what I'm saying, like as far as like the spiritual energy of you being a seer, you know what I'm saying, that means that you have some type of intrinsic, you know, energy that's connected to your bloodline. Why is the energy so serious? Why do I feel rage? Because like I said, that's that energy. That energy coming in is that etheric frequency. That's that non-ether energy coming in. You know what I'm saying? You know, causing the spiritual equilibrium of the planet to go back into a state of balancement. Because if you're energetically out of balance, it's going to force you to be in balance. Yeah, YouTube is probably messed with because I never have trouble, you know, with a lot of, you know, with my videos or whatever, all my technological devices or whatever. I never have trouble. But today I have a lot of trouble. I couldn't even present my full presentation for it today because a lot of the lagging and the choppiness of the video. Hit me up with about, I need some more questions and then I'm probably get about 5 more questions in and I'm going to head on out. Let me see. Can I stop paying my bills and taxes and car note and focus on my friends? I mean, technically, we're not supposed to be paying bills anyway because, like I said, everything that we have has a QSIP number on it, meaning that we're paying for it twice. So it's one of those things where, I mean, I'm not going to tell you to stop paying your bills. Like I said, it's up to you to have the fortitude to do so. If you want to do that, then go on and do it. But like I said, you know, we are at the apex of a system, so you know, if the system phases out or whatever, you know what I'm saying, you're not going to hurt yourself if you don't pay bills or something was to take place in the country and the money system collapse or whatever. But you know, just hypothetically speaking, if the money system collapses, you know what I'm saying, you're not going to be able to use the money anyway. So I mean, it's up to you. One thing about Freemasons, they're basically foot soldiers for the Illuminati because you got low level Masons who don't even know what the hell is going on. You know, some just because you're a Freemason doesn't mean that you're a part of the Illuminati. You got some Freemasons they just join it just become just to be a part of something, just to have a brotherhood. But does it mean that they're connected to something that's benevolent? No, but it's all acclimated to Freemasonry. Ain't nothing but Luciferianism. That's all it is. It's Luciferianism slapped on top of a so-called brotherhood. A lot of the places that you see, as far as like the biblical cities that's named in America and that's connected to biblical context when you read the Bible, a lot of these land masses in America were named here first before they was named over in the Middle East and Africa. That's a fact. So that's how you know that this is the true Holy Land. Uh, Let me see. Man, I'm glad you said this up here because, like I said, there is a Jerusalem in Virginia. Because that new solar eclipse that's going to be taking place on April 8th is going through 7 cities called Jerusalem and no Salem. So it's basically the suffix of the word Salem. Jerusalem is. So it's going through 7 cities called Salem that solar eclipse that's going to be happening on April 8th. And I think that's connected to the East Coast as well. I see your comments. I'm gonna get 2 more questions because my son is mad at me right now. So I'm gonna get 2 more questions in. Yeah, I've been having problems with the video all day. Let me see. Everything is saying. Yeah, everything is compromised. Because like I told you, when you understand the inception point of their system, you go to Revelation 17:17, El's holy angel, the evil reptilian gave power to the beast, right? So the beast is the Canaanite. The evil reptilian is the black nobility. Those are the cherubim. Those are the cherubim, the 200 fallen angels, the Nephilim. When you break down the etymology of the word Nephilim, you get Nephala in ancient Hebrew. So those fallen angels gave the power to the Babylonian beast system. And the Babylonian beast system is comprised of controlling economics, politics, education, the food industry, movie industry, rap industry. They control everything. So everything that's connected to the system is being controlled by the archonic forces behind the scenes who control the Canaanite. That is your black nobility. That is the black hand, right? That is the black hand who controls everything through the 5 P's, which is the penal system, politics, philosophy, I think patriarchy, and I think the other one is polytheism, right? Let me see. Those are the 5 P's of occultism. You live in a occultic society which is under Luciferianism. I'm gonna take one more question.